Our approach to strategic planning is about asking big questions together and coming up with shared answers. Organizations are looking around saying, like, what mountain are we going to climb? And if you were to ask 5 different staff members, you'd probably get 5 different answers.
Mm-hmm.
We start all of our strategic planning processes with saying, what are the 2 to 3 questions that you as an organization need shared answers to? What's our vision for the future? What are our 3 to 4 priorities? And do we have the right team to get there?
That's right. Have you heard the saying, the opposite of addiction is connection? We at the Addiction Prevention Coalition know that there's truth in that adage. And so we are fighting addiction face to face, conversation by conversation, creating connection. Here at The Shield, our new podcast, no topic is off limits because there are no limits when it comes to substance use disorder. Welcome to The Shield. This is a time where we talk about the intersection of mental health and substance use on all facets of life, but then at the same time, like really highlight some awesome things that are happening in Birmingham and awesome people that are living here and doing the work. So I am honored today to have with me Rosie Stafford Smith from Zadie Co. And I'm just going to stop there. Welcome.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
So we first met in St. Louis.
Yes.
And you lived in St. Louis. Tell me your origin story a little bit.
Yeah, so Birmingham is home. I grew up here, but moved away for college and grad school. And so I went to grad school in St. Louis and met my husband there who had also come there for graduate school.
Is he also from Alabama?
No, he's from Kansas. So I brought him here.
Got it. Okay.
I recruited him. So we met there and ended up staying. I was there for 10 years. He was there for 9. And we really built a life there. We loved it. And then we had our first child and we're ready to be a little bit closer to family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, okay, you kind of skipped over well, I was there for 10 years.
Yeah.
Okay. Rosie, you were kind of a big deal. Yeah. Okay. Kind of. So talk a little bit about what you did, how our paths crossed.
Yeah. So most of my time in St. Louis was spent at the United Way there. And so United Way of Greater St. Louis was at the time the largest United Way in the world.
Huge. Yes. Huge.
And it was operating out of pace with other United Ways in many ways in terms of it had a lot of control and discretion over how funds were invested back into the community versus being a pass-through.
That's right.
Called it. And so because of that, there was a lot of opportunity for innovation and being creative and really embedding into the community and understanding what needs were. And so within that, we were also recognizing the world is changing and the way people give corporately was changing. And so the CEO at the time, Orvin Kimbrough, recognized that and understood that we've got to resource the innovative aspect of what we do outside of the day-to-day operations because otherwise it'll just get eaten alive by what we all know how to do.
That's right.
And so tale as old as time within a large organization. And so we created this innovation team and I got to be part of that team. And one of the innovations that was out of that was creating a consulting firm within United Way. And so we created a consulting firm that was called Customized Philanthropy. And so we did strategic planning, we did community needs assessments, we designed corporate giving programs, and I got to lead that work for several years. And
so Orv is awesome.
Yeah.
He's no longer with United Way. Now he's at Midwest Bank.
That's right.
And he actually spoke at PreventEd's annual spring luncheon. For those people that are just tuning in, PreventEd is where I worked for over 16 years. And so Orv and Midwest Bank is one of the banks they use. And so, but he wrote a book and he's awesome. But what I think you're speaking to is like around, and maybe my timing is a little bit off, but like around the time of Ferguson with Mike Brown, a lot of companies, like large companies in St. Louis, everything from Emerson and, Ameren and places like that, really wanted to have a little bit more control over where they were investing their dollars, right?
That's right.
And so it changed the funding mechanism or the amount of money available for organizations like PreventEd, who had been kind of a legacy organization at one point in time. I don't know if you know this, but the United Way actually saved PreventEd from going bankrupt.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah. And So we had been, one of those agencies that were getting 85% of funding guaranteed every year, and you'd have the site visit and all the things. But after the Ferguson unrest happened, and organizations, especially who were based in or around Ferguson, were like, okay, we want to do something a little bit different.
Yeah.
So is that the timing that all of this was happening?
Yeah, and it was a convergence of factors.
Totally.
Certainly Mike Brown's murder was part of that, and people wanting to assert control. There was also globalization, and that really coming home, where St. Louis was behind, like many places of the coastal cities. But what had happened on the coast years before of employees saying, why am I giving my money to someone else to be able to decide where it goes? I want to be able to decide directly. And unlike, decades ago when the United Way was created, we have so much more access to information now. Mm-hmm. And so you could go online and research an organization. You could decide, is it a good organization? Do they have sound practices? Versus really saying, I need to outsource this vetting and due diligence to an entity like United Way. So because of the advent of technology, because of employees wanting more control, we were able to, we saw a massive disruption to the model. And Orv was ahead of his time in terms of really wanting to say, how do we get ahead of this and really use this to our good?
Yeah, he's killer. And just like a nice dude.
Yeah.
The funniest thing, this is a random story, but he in St. Louis, particularly if you're running the United Way, you're kind of a big deal, right? Yeah. And I was first executive director, like couldn't be a month in. And I went to some fancy event at the MAC, the Missouri Athletic Club, which is kind of like the club here, right? And it's very fancy. And I walk in and I see this guy who I know. Yeah. But I don't know how I know him. Yeah. But I know him. And I didn't want to be rude and not say, who are you? Yeah. So I was just like, hey, how are you? Yeah. And he's like, I'm good. And I was like, hey, I know you. Yeah. It's, you look so familiar. And he's like, I'm Orv Kimbrough, CEO of United Way. And I was like, hi. Yeah. I'm Nichole, and I'm one of your funded agencies. And he was like, oh, sweet. Hit me up on LinkedIn. Yeah. And I'm like dying 1,000 deaths.
I can hear that conversation.
Right, yeah. I'm dying. I call my predecessor at the time, and I was like, Howard, you're never going to believe what I did. And he was like, you probably endeared yourself to him because you just didn't give a crap, you know?
That's right.
It was so funny. Anyway, so you started to get your feet wet with the consulting. Yeah. And then when did you decide to go on your own? Because that's actually how I met you. I didn't even know you when you were at United Way.
Yeah. So, gosh, let me think back. So, okay. I moved to Birmingham in 2018, and I kept working remotely for United Way because it was such a cool job.
Yeah. Oh, it was
a great job. And I loved what I did. I loved the people I worked with. Then I had my second child, and traveling back and forth to St. Louis became less practical for me. And so I started to look around locally, but also wasn't really sure what I wanted. I really liked what I was doing. I loved working with organizations on these short, time-bound projects where you could really make an impact. And so, necessity is the mother of invention. I was like, I don't see this job here, so I think I'm going to start on my own. And so that's how it happened. It was really more because I was hitting some brick walls and wasn't really clear on what I wanted. And I was like, could I do this? And so that's where it started. That was the last week of February of 2020. So I quit my job. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Quit my job. And 3 weeks later, the world shut down.
Love it.
So it's one of those things, I call it mysterious timing, where I don't know that I would have started it 4 weeks later. Yeah. But because I'd already started, I'd taken the leap, and I was like, guess we got to figure this out now.
And so you had been a consultant on different, for different organizations that I was affiliated with or on boards of or whatever. And so I kind of knew your name, but we never really worked together. Yeah. And then I'm pouring my heart out to one of my colleagues, Shannon Grass. And I'm like, I think I'm going to move to Birmingham, but I don't know. And I don't know what to do. And do I stay in the nonprofit world? Do I start working for a bank? Do I work at a dive bar? What do I do exactly? And she was like, hold up. Yeah. She's like, take some breaths. Why don't you connect with Rosie? Yeah. And I was like, okay. And she's like, yeah, she moved to Birmingham. Yeah. You should connect with her. So one of the times I was down here, you and I grabbed coffee and we really talked about how much synergy there is between Birmingham and St. Louis. Yes. not just in terms of like the inner city versus all the suburbs and the school system and the government. And I think at the time the mayors were friends, like Woodfin and Tashara Jones were friends even. And like, but also like how many connections there are.
Yes.
And you said, when you come on down, I will help you navigate this nonprofit world. And as it turns out, you were in a creative writing class with Carrie.
Yes.
Which is so completely random.
Yes.
And then you did the nicest thing for me, and you basically had like a welcome to Birmingham party with some of your friends. Yeah. It was so sweet.
It was fun.
And you've helped me navigate the nonprofit world down here. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. It was a privilege. I mean, when I moved here in 2018, I hadn't been here in a decade and a half, and it was really hard to start over. And I actually had family here and relationships, and it was still really hard. And so I made a commitment where when good people move here, I want to help them land. And so it really was healing for me to be able to do that because I didn't have that for myself.
Awesome. I really do appreciate it. And then Elvis redid your bathroom.
Yes, I know. Like as you're pulling on all these threads, I'm like, where do the connections stop?
I don't know. It's so weird.
We were destined to know one another and work together.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he remodeled that, and I was like, you better do a good job.
Yeah, and he did. It's beautiful. We love it. Yeah.
So you have a company, which I want to talk about, and I want you to talk a little bit about. And is this a commercial for you all? It sure is, because
our first.
I am a testament to the work that you all do, and your team is amazing. And we ended up hiring you all because we think that the work that you do is necessary and important. So talk a little bit about your company, the evolution of it, and the present day of it.
Yeah. So 2020 to 2022, it was just me at a folding table from Goodwill with a blanket on top of it to cover up all the marks and dings in my guest bedroom at home. And we were taking on small projects with organizations we weren't quite doing strategic planning yet. We were doing some coaching with executive directors, but really what led me to start the company and sort of this founding hypothesis I had was that leaders are lonely. We saw that.
Yep.
And so leaders are sitting, particularly of nonprofit organizations, they don't have a deep bench they don't have their CEO, COO and their CFO and all these other folks that are at the executive level with them that they can bounce ideas off of and think through, is this a good idea? How should we roll this out? How will this land with staff? What will our board think? They don't have that. And what a shame. Mm-hmm. And so we wanted to become that. And so that is something that I thought if we can lend that kind of brain space where we say, we know and understand you. We've been in your shoes because I was making really difficult decisions, feeling like I was in a vacuum when I was at United Way and saw just what support could offer. So that's how we started, and that's really been the thread of what we've done. So then in 2022, I hired our first person to join us, Maureen Moose.
Oh, she's awesome. She's like data research.
Exactly.
She's awesome.
Exactly, because so much of what we do is listen and we learn. And so we don't come into organizations saying we can help you solve your problem or we know exactly what you should do. I mean, the hubris of that, right?
Yeah.
So we want to learn.
And it's so annoying, which I know you know this, as like a person in leadership to have somebody come in and be like, well, what have you tried this? Yes. Well, what you really should do. And it's like, oh, no.
Tell me more. Occurred to me. Yeah.
It's like that Willy Wonka meme. Like, oh, no, I hadn't heard of that.
Yeah.
Like,
And that's one of my deep beliefs is it's not that nonprofit executive directors don't know what to do. It's that they don't have the time and space to think through what and how to do it.
Right.
We aren't coming in with the answers. What we're doing is helping to create that space in a very really busy, noisy place.
That. I felt it. I feel it. I think that's a differentiator for you guys.
Yeah. So we started picking up strategic planning projects because people coming out of the intense first years of COVID were saying, what do I do now?
Right.
Like, what's our plan? Are we still the same organization? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so we started to do that work. And that's really the bread and butter of what we do. We get to walk alongside organizations who are asking really big questions. And our approach to strategic planning is, as you know, it's about asking big questions together and coming up with shared answers. And so what I mean by that is organizations are looking around saying, like, what mountain are we going to climb? And if you were to ask 5 different staff members, you'd probably get 5 different answers.
Mm-hmm.
And think about, you take that out into the field, and then you've got people going in 5 different directions and pulling resources in 5 different directions, and you're not making the kind of impact you want to have. And so we start all of our strategic planning processes with saying, what are the 2 to 3 questions that you as an organization need shared answers to? And most commonly, and these are your questions, were, what's our vision for the future? What are our 3 to 4 priorities? And do we have the right team to get there?
That's right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What was the process like for you?
Well, so it was a little different according to Allison because we, are federally funded. And so the money that we thought we would have to be able to embark on this process was a little less, aka a lot less than what we thought. So we had to adjust. So, and by that, I mean that you all did a lot of the discovery and a lot of the facilitation at the very beginning, and then were able to give me the data with a lot of coaching. And then I kind of picked it up from there and wrote the plan.
Yeah.
Whereas in the past, I think at a lot of other places, you all would actually be like crafting the plan and then perhaps even leading some conversations around what is our vision, what are our values, what happens if we're not here? Like, are we actually doing the thing that we've set out to do?
Yeah.
And what is that thing?
Yeah.
Which we're starting to embark on right now. So,
and what you're not saying is that Nichole has the skills and talent to be able to take all the data that we were able to serve up, and it can be very personal, and it can feel like an affront. You're hearing maybe for the first time ways of, what does your organization really think about you as a leader? Where are your blind spots? We are also serving of what organizations do really well. So it's not all negative, but a lot of times where we come in is because, or we lead the rest of the work, is because leaders are stuck. They feel like, I kind of can't get past what this means for me and how I take this, and they need somebody from the outside. And you were able to look at that data head on and say, let's go.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I will say that, the process itself, I used to be one of those executive directors, especially when I first started, because what I had learned from, and this is not a knock on my predecessors, I loved them with my entire heart and soul. I learned a lot from them. But strategic plans were like, either, hey, let's get everybody in a room, do a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. Let's get in a room, and then a select group of people will figure out what that really means for the agency. And then we've got a plan that we submit to funders like the United Way. We dust it off every 3 years, every 5 years maybe, because we know we have to renew it. Or it was, what should our strategic plan be? I don't know. Let's have 3 people come into a room and decide what it is for everybody else. Neither of those work, right? And so when I first got into this role, however many years ago, I was like, ugh, I don't have time for this. Like, it's just one more thing the funders make us do. Yeah. And I didn't understand not just strategic planning, but strategy in general. It's really easy, as I know you know, to get into the weeds.
Yeah.
And this is anybody. This is even like Ronnie, right? Like, you have a business, Ronnie, you're growing. And you also have emails to check, and you have clients to book, and you have to sometimes like plunge a toilet, And like, how do you do all of those things and then also make sure that the staff get paid, that your clients get served, that your board understands what's going on and is supportive of you? So I didn't get it, really. But now I think the process is almost as valuable as the plan, because when Allison came in, and she was the representative from your company that we had the privilege of working with, she did stakeholder interviews. She did one-on-one interviews with the board. She did a staff focus group. She met with me several times. Like, they did a deep dive. Maureen did a deep dive into like looking at the landscape, like what other nonprofits in our space are doing similar work. Who do we want to be? Like, And you do have to take all that information and then do something with it.
Yes.
And then actually live it so that it's not just a piece of paper.
Absolutely. And I mean, the school of strategic planning I grew up in was months and months long processes, committees that met for hours, these thick data books of looking at information. And we didn't want to have anything to do with that because we found that those things just became doorstops essentially for organizations. They weren't actually informing the daily life of the organization. What are the choices we're making? How are we spending our time? What are we going to choose to do? And what are we going to choose to not do? What programs are we stopping so that we can do these new things that we want to do? Strategy is about choices, and it's really hard to make choices when you love everything that you do and you see that it makes a difference. And as we all know, none of us can do everything really, really well. And so the main thing we often do in our work is we listen. And then the second thing is we hold people accountable to make hard choices.
Look, the way that Allison navigated the board retreat, because so we have 4 strategic priorities for the next 2.5, 3 years.
4, not 14.
Correct. Exactly.
On purpose.
4, not 14. And there's so much overlap between the 4 priorities. That really, to me, was reassuring because it shows alignment, that our staff, that our board, that everybody's sort of on the same page. We know that we need to focus. We know we probably need to slow down so we can speed up.
Yeah.
We need to do a little bit less so that we can do more. We know that our capacity needs to grow, but in order to do that, we have to diversify our funding. But the one thing that, was really one of our priorities is around board. And I will tell you, APC's board is incredible. I feel incredibly supported, but I also feel like they hold me accountable. And they're not just yes men and women, they're actually asking tough questions. But one of the things was around their engagement.
Yeah.
And Allison gave a masterclass about saying the things that you want to say, that I want to say, but I can't say because technically they're my bosses, Yeah. So she was kind of holding truth to power in the nicest, most diplomatic way possible.
Yes.
I really appreciated that.
And she's incredible. And I've known her for decades. And
she used to be an executive director.
Exactly. Yes. That's what I was going to say is she was the founding executive director of an organization where it was just her at the beginning. And then that grew and grew and grew. And she navigated all of those things. And so she's not speaking from an academic place. She's speaking from I've been here. I've done this. I don't have all the answers, but I know what it feels like to be you.
Tell me about your name change because I'm obsessed with it.
Well, I want to say one more thing about strategic planning,
which
is
do it.
People listening might think that sounds like a really long and tedious process. I think your process took 12 weeks, maybe 8.
The actual thing.
The actual planning process.
Right.
And so that's another big commitment that we've made is this process should not drag on for months and months and months and months, but 2 to 3 months of dedicated focused time. And you're in and out. Then you have something that you can work with and you're off to the races.
I will say that I think the actual process where we involved you all took less time than actually
getting it adopted.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it was not it didn't make me nervous, but it was an aggressive timeline.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I guess we're doing the thing.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Which I appreciated.
Yeah.
Also, I did it right when I stepped in as executive director, so I could really own it.
Absolutely.
And now that we're seeing sort of where we are under my leadership, which is similar in a lot of ways to Carrie's, but also different, it really sort of allows everybody to be on the same page.
Yeah. So going back to the name change.
I love it.
Yeah, thank you. So our Zadie Co is named after my maternal grandmother. So she passed away 6 months before I met my husband, but we were incredibly close. And I grew up going to her house all the time. She lived on the lake, and she was just a light in my life and a real influence for me. And she was born with the name Zadie Francis. And
which is such a Southern, I love it.
Zadie Francis. And from Brundage, Alabama, one of 7 kids. And she never liked the name Zadie. She felt like it kind of made her stand out. And it was funny, as I've gotten older, I've reflected on that so she went by her middle name, Frances. So that's what everybody knew her as. And when I heard this story when she was still alive, I remember asking her about it, but the details are really fuzzy to me in terms of why she said she didn't want that name anymore. But it had something to do with not wanting to stand out. And then as I have reflected back on my life as an adult, of her life as I've been an adult, I recognize she stood out in so many ways. She was never afraid to do what needed to be done, to make the hard decision, to say what needed to be said. She maybe wasn't the loudest person in the room, but she had a presence. And so we are reclaiming that name through the company of, you may have felt like you couldn't stand out or didn't want to early in your life, and you have a presence. And we want to have that kind of presence where we don't have to be the loudest voice in the room, but when we say something, people listen.
I love it. And when that story it was shared at the board retreat, you could have heard a pin drop. Like I think it just rings true to you as a human, the team you've assembled, but also like the work that you're doing. It's just, I don't know. I love it.
Thank you. It truly feels like an honor to carry on her name in this way. And it brings to me a sacredness to the work that we do of, this isn't just some consulting gig, but it's really carrying on a legacy. So
what's next for Zadie Co? Because I know you've been sort of trying on some things. You're doing some like interviews with folks to figure out what they need. So what's next for you all?
Yeah. So, we talked about 5 years ago, we started the firm and we're kind of figuring out who we were. And then 3 years ago, we started doing strategic planning. And even that world has changed so much where organizations with federal funding in jeopardy.
Yep.
I know, deep breath.
Yep. Deep breath. Sorry. I just had to exhale a little bit.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
The economy and the uncertainty it leads with donations, and just so much change happening in the sector. There's so much uncertainty. Organizations are saying, I don't need a 3-year plan. I'm trying to think, what do I do 6 months from now?
Exactly.
How am I keeping the lights on? And that's not to say that we don't think strategic planning is important, but we're also saying, how do we continue to meet the moment? And that is what we want to be part of our brand and who we are, is that we're meeting the moment, not saying, well, we've always done this, and so here are the services we offer, and if they meet your needs, great, and if they don't, okay.
Right.
And the questions we're seeing organizations asking right now are, how do I make it work? How do I make it work now with XYZ changes that I've experienced? We're hearing organizations say, AI, well, what about that? How do I deal with that? How do I navigate that? And then we're continuing to hear the enduring loneliness of executive directors who are making decisions that feel like in a vacuum, and they may get support at these big shiny moments like strategic planning or their big annual event, but the everyday moments of leadership where they've got to walk into a staff conversation and say a hard thing and manage not just the information, but the people and the personalities and the impact on culture. Who are they talking to prepare for that? How are they feeling supported? How are they feeling grounded in their values walking into that conversation? And then how do they actually make sure what happens in that conversation leads to something afterwards? It's not just the meeting that everybody says, well, I'll never get that hour of my life back.
Yep.
So we're asking really big questions right now of how do we meet this moment? So I'm interviewing executive directors. My goal in the next 60 days is to interview 40 executive directors from around the country and see what I can learn. I'm 8 interviews in. I have 12 more scheduled. So I'm halfway to my goal and really just trying to listen. And then our plan is that in October, we're going to roll out something that's responsive to what we've heard. Awesome. So stay tuned. I'm excited to share more.
Awesome. So this will probably come out in October.
Okay.
Which means that we'll be able to,
I love it.
Like if people want to find out, they should go to
ZadieCo.com. Yeah, ZadieCo.com. So ZADIECO.com.
ZADIE co.com.
Yeah. Or find me on LinkedIn, Rosie Stafford Smith.
Got it.
Yeah.
I'll just add one thing that I'm sure you're paying attention to, but with all the funding uncertainty, I think several years ago, there was a lot of pressure, I will say, from funders to merge or to collaborate in more authentic ways. And I think after COVID, a lot of nonprofits were like, we're going to do this our own way. Like, we're going to not just collaborate authentically, but we're going to think about fiscal partnerships. We're going to think about co-locating. We're going to really think about this, because resources were weird. They weren't scarce, but they were weird. People were changing how we were reaching folks. And I think this is another time where, I've had several conversations with organization leaders where it's like, we've got to pool our resources, and it's not exactly a merger, but it's really how can we be more thoughtful about how we're utilizing dollars because of the scarcity, because of the changes. And I'm just really going to be interested to hear if that is a theme that comes up when you're meeting with other folks, and how you all respond to that. Because I think there would be, I think there's some wisdom in what you all could provide.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to maintain your identity and give it up too at the same time. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What is uniquely ours to do?
Correct.
And, times of scarcity sort of force these questions in ways where when there's enough to go around, or you've been able to make it work, you're able to sort of take on programs or preserve things that maybe have lived past their life cycle. And when times are scarce, it forces everyone to say, okay, what is my lane? And I sort of hate the stay in your lane, because I think it can be really used to limit people.
Yeah.
But really saying what are we uniquely good at?
What is our lane?
If we were to go away, if this were to go away tomorrow, people would miss it. There would be a real hole. And also allowing other organizations to ask that question and saying, okay, we may be able to do that, but just because you can does not mean you should.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so some of that program sharing, it's definitely coming up in the interviews so far.
Awesome. Yeah. I'm just really grateful. I know our staff and our board are really grateful for the work that, Allison and Maureen and you did to help us achieve some alignment. And I think now we have a roadmap to get even further focused, because we're going to need it. So it came at just the right time. And I just really value the approach that you all take. So
thank you. Yeah. It was our privilege. Yeah. And you've got the hard work now.
Now we got to do it.
Doing all the things that we wrote on the 1 to 2 pages. Yeah.
That's exactly right. Yeah. Also, just thank you for your friendship. And it really does mean a lot when you open doors or even say, hey, have you met so-and-so? It's just been really nice, because Birmingham is a big old small town.
That's right.
So it's nice to have somebody who is helping me make it
Likewise.
home. If you like what you heard, and I know you did, please consider rating, reviewing, and subscribing to The Shield. And if you need help strategic planning, check out Zadie Co. This is not a paid advertisement. Goodbye.